This is not going to be my normal fun stuff. I was just looking on Twitter and I saw that 13 Reasons Why is getting another season. I just had a moment where I was like, this makes me really angry. I dealt with the first season. I dealt with its creation. I dealt with people wanting to view it, people watching it, liking it, and having to see it on all of my social media. It got to a point where I feel like I'm not expressing my distaste for the show in like a real manner. I'm gonna be like very frank and honest with my issues with it and why I really think it's terrible media to consume. Starting off the bat, like I read the book back in middle school and I didn't think it was anything of like terrible note. I read it because I was like in 7th grade and everyone else read it. It was like alright, but I remember thinking like being very dissatisfied with it and thinking like this wasn't supposed to happen. I thought that like her reasons for killing herself were not strong enough. Like, excuse me if I'm getting like deep themes of this wrong. I haven't read it since then. If people were nicer to her, that she would have been better. And it's, you know, people, how we treat one another, how we need to be nice to one another. And for that, like, yes, like we need to treat each other with love and respect. But on the side of mental illness, it fails. It so fails that. I'm hoping the author has some kind of experience with this. I think that would be a terrible thing to be an author and write about mental illness and suicide if you've never experienced something like that. But I do have a feeling that the author has never dealt with that. Coming from my own point of view of losing someone to suicide recently, someone I loved a lot and continue to love with my entire heart, it's not pretty. It's fucking ugly. And her story, trying to make sense out of it, trying to make a storyline out of suicide is inconceivable. That's loud. I didn't think it'd be that loud. Anyways, trying to make like a storyline out of like suicide is it doesn't give it justice. It doesn't give the immaculate pain and the senselessness of having to live through that. From my own point of view, before reading the book in middle school and before having to go through losing someone to that, I did always treat mental illness and especially suicide with a touch of sentimentality and a touch of romanticism. Partly because I used it to cope, and I think that's what a lot of people do. I think that trying to create meaning where there isn't any fills in, you know, the holes of life's unanswerable questions, and it's human nature to want to do that. And I partook in that so much. That's exactly what her book does. That's exactly what the television show then does. I mean, I have not watched the show. I refuse to watch the show. I think maybe I watched the beginning parts just to see how they dealt with the students going through the suicide. It's not reality. It's not, you know, people getting kind of angry. It's not someone like necessarily yelling at a teacher. Oh, that's loud. It's so much more. It's someone like yelling. It's someone screaming because their best friend is dead. It's someone being unable to like get on with their life for weeks, months. It's not anything that is made out the television show from what I've seen and the book from what I read. It's just not that. I don't have the words. I'll cry. It's not the words. If I could explain to you like the reality of losing someone to that, and especially in a school setting, like, no. The school goes into a lull. I mean, you see people crying everywhere. In my own experience, it was crying in a school bathroom for half an hour with a girl that only met my friend briefly because she was so fucked up from it. And being able to bond from that. Like, it sounds fake. It sounds fake until you live with it, but like, part of you is missing. And it's like just complete sadness and an inconceivability to understand why your friend isn't here anymore from something that could have been stopped. Which brings me back to the point, what this show gets wrong. And that's the mental illness aspect of it. Friendship, trying to treat one another with niceness, yeah, I get that. But showing that through the plot of suicide is wrong. Like, it is so wrong. Because that's not an issue of someone bullying. It's really an issue of mental illness. If people don't kill themselves, just someone's bullying them. But there are other reasons. Losing my friend with that? It was so many layers. And I know I've talked to friends. You want to blame specific things that happen. What led them to do that? But it's not. It's not one thing. It's so many things. But the main thing being mental illness and depression. Like, it's an illness. You need help. Like, it's an illness like everything else. And the show trying to create a storyline out of something so disgusting. It just lessens the severity for people and lessens the reality of the complete hopelessness and jaggedness of that. And so season 2, I've already had to deal with so many people believing this narrative. I don't know what to say. At the end of the day, you want to consume that? Like, fine, go ahead. You need to know that that's not, like, real. And I feel like if you are an educated enough, conscious enough viewer of content and content consumer, you could step back for a second and be like, am I contributing to something worthwhile? And that is, like, on my list at least, one of the least good consuming products you could take. So that's that spiel. Don't fucking watch it.